If you're feeling like your social media is a bit all over the place and could use a little TLC, then I have good news. You are in the right place. Today, I'm sharing 5 easy tips to help you do a social media cleanup that will leave you feeling refreshed and more confident about your online presence. Trust me, a little bit of tidying up can work wonders, not only for how you look online, but also for how you feel about the process. These tips will help you to reduce your overwhelm, help you attract the right audience, and make it so much easier to show up consistently. But before we dive in, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to tune in to Show Up and Be Heard, the podcast that exists to help women like you simplify your business and your life so that you can stop feeling so overwhelmed. I am your host, Becci McAvoy, owner and founder of Be Heard Socials and Boss Your Socials Club, and I am an award-winning social media marketer and international speaker who specialises in content strategy and organic growth on social media. If you want to cut through the noise and BS and get practical, actionable advice tailored specifically to make social media marketing accessible and easy to understand, or if you want to be part of a supportive community where women entrepreneurs can feel connected and inspired to achieve their dreams, then keep listening because you are in the right place. To be the first to find out when new episodes go live and get more tips like the ones you hear in this podcast, make sure you join my email community through the link in the show notes. Right then, let's get started with this week's episode. I am so desperate to be out of winter. I love the spring and I literally cannot wait for it to arrive. I can't wait for the nights to get a little bit lighter and just feel all of the spring vibes. And I think that might be one of the reasons that I'm doing this podcast episode, because I feel like the tips that I'm going to give you in this episode is going to be a little bit like a spring clean of your social media accounts, because we all need it sometimes, don't we? Your social media accounts can start to feel a little tired and look unloved. And, when it gets like that, it makes it harder to show up. The good news is, with a quick once over, they'll soon be feeling fresh and inviting, and will be attracting new followers and people who want to champion and cheerlead your business. So that's what this episode is all about. I'm going to dive into some real simple, easy steps that you can take to freshen up your social media and to give it a little bit of a early spring clean. So let's unleash our inner Mrs. Hinch. Is Mrs. Hinch even still a thing? I used to be obsessed with all the cleaning accounts when they first came out, when they first sort of like went really big a few years ago, and now I don't think I follow any of them. I'm going to assume she is still about. Let's unleash our Mrs. Inner Hinch in 5 easy tips that I'm going to share with you now. And we are going to start with talking about your bios. Now, I talk about your Instagram bio quite a lot. I've done a podcast episode on it in quite a lot of detail, and I will link to that in the show notes. I've also just done a 5-day challenge on getting your Instagram bio right for 2025, and the reason that I talk about it a lot is because it's really important that you get it right. And the thing is, you can do the work on it. For example, you might have listened to the podcast episode when it came out, probably about 6 months ago now, if not more. But some stuff might have changed, because over time the info in your bios can go out of date without you realizing. Maybe your offering has changed, or you've got new things to shout about, and so it's important to make sure you regularly give them a check over. So this is a bit of a reminder in this episode to do that. If you are not sure where to start, here is a few ways that you can just do it in really short bursts. So say, for example, you've got 10 minutes, I don't know, you're waiting for the kettle to boil, or you've just got 10 minutes. Here's some things you could do. You can check your description and make sure it still represents who you are and what you do. Obviously, that's very important. You can check your branding, logo, images, and messaging are consistent across all platforms. So do you have the same profile picture on LinkedIn as you do on Instagram, for example, so that people, when they land on it, instantly know that they found the right person. And things like banner images on Facebook and LinkedIn, are they up to date? Are they the right size for the platform? Can you actually read them? You can have a look at that. That's another thing you could do. And you can also check web links are working and sending people to the place that you want them to go. Make sure none of them have become inactive, because there is nothing worse than actually getting someone to click a link in your bio, which is really difficult, and then them landing on a dead page. So yeah, those are a few things you could do. You can check your description, still represents who you are and what you do. You can check your branding, logo, images, and the same across all platforms. You can check your banner images are up to date and the right size for each platform, and you can check the links that you have got in your bio. Now, there is a ton of other stuff that you can do with your bio, but remember, this episode is about quick and easy transformations. It's about quick and easy tips that you can implement. So unless you have the time to spare, set a timer for 10 minutes and don't go over that, or do it whilst you're waiting for the kettle to boil, because we all know how easy it is to fall down a bit of a social media rabbit hole. And when that timer goes off, or when the kettle is boiled, you can stop and just see what you've noticed in that time. And if you still have bits you want to do, you can put some time in the diary for 10 minutes on another day. Or if you do want to put a lot of time and effort into your bio, you really want to dig deeper into it, then go check out the episode that I've done on nailing your Instagram bio and what it needs to include. I will link to that in the show notes. But those are some tips. Tip number one is have a tidy up of your bio. And the idea is that there's some simple 10-minute tasks that you can do. Okay, tip number two, you can clean up old accounts. So let's talk about all those old accounts that you have started, and then let's be honest, maybe forgotten about. The ones that you haven't posted on in ages. It happens to the best of us. But even if you're not actively using them, those accounts are still out there and they're still representing your business. So it's time to take a quick look at them and clean them up, which is exactly what this is for. So does the account still match your current brand and messaging, or is it stuck in the past with old branding or outdated posts, or like I said earlier, like different photos or whatever it might be? Ask yourself, could this inactive account be giving the impression that my business is no longer active? And that, because that's the last thing that you want potential customers or clients to think if they I don't know, they've been recommended you, they find your social media account, but they find it on a platform you're not active on, and they then think you're inactive. You do not want to do that, especially if you're putting in the effort elsewhere. So here's the plan. Once you've had a look at all of the different accounts that you've got, if that account isn't serving you, decide whether it is time to say goodbye to it, or if you can breathe new life into it. If you choose to keep it, even if it's just to hold on to for now, make sure you update it to align with your other platforms. This includes updating the messaging, the visuals, and of course, including the right links, like I've said in the first tip, to direct followers to your active platform. So unlike before, where I was talking about make sure your links are working, that's obviously still important if you have them on these inactive platforms. You want to make sure that if people are finding this platform, they're coming and finding the one that you are actually active on, because a quick refresh can make a big difference. And there's two ways that you could do this. So for example, I have an account on X, which I still want to call Twitter, which I never use. I don't overly want to get rid of it at the moment because I want to keep the handle, although the way things are going, I'm not sure I'm ever going to go back to it, so we will see. But at the moment, that account is still active. And if you go over to Be Heard Socials on X, which I really struggle not to say Twitter, but if you go over there, what you will see is a pinned tweet that says, I don't use this account. I can't remember exactly what it says, but I don't use this account. But come find me on Instagram because that's where I hang out. Even on my LinkedIn account, where I am semi on, I don't spend a lot of time on it, but I am active on there. I have something in my headline that says I mostly hang out on Instagram, so people know that that's where they can expect to find me. So yeah, just have a clean up of those old accounts, look at all the accounts you've got, and don't be afraid to delete them, because you don't need to be on every platform. Like I said, I haven't done that with X yet, but I might do in the future, so we will see. But yeah, don't be afraid to delete them if you're not going to use them. But if you are going to keep them, make sure they are being really clear about where people can find you and where people can find you actively hanging up. So yeah, that is tip 2, clean up your accounts. Okay, so tip number 3, and I love this one. It's all about decluttering your feed. In the spirit of having a little bit of a spring clean, let's do some decluttering. So yeah, let's talk about your feed. How many times recently have you scrolled through, you've opened up whatever app you're on and you've scrolled through your feed and you've thought, ugh, I really don't need to see this anymore. And it makes you not even want to be on the platform, which gets you all in a negative headspace about social media. Maybe it is a post from accounts that no longer serve your business and you've been following them a while. Or posts that just aren't inspiring you anymore. don't be afraid to declutter. Don't be afraid to hit that unfollow button or the mute button if for whatever reason you don't want to unfollow them. But we're talking about decluttering, so don't be afraid to unfollow if accounts aren't serving you anymore. You can take a good look at your following list, or you can just look, as if you don't want to go right through your following list, which can be a bit more time consuming, you can just look at what's popping up on your feed and have a declutter if it's triggering something negative in you, or not even necessarily negative, but for whatever reason it's just not serving you anymore. So yeah, it might be that those accounts no longer align with your values or your business goals. Maybe some accounts that you followed a while ago, but now they make you feel bad about yourself or cause you unnecessary stress. And don't forget those dead accounts too. There'll be loads of accounts that you followed that haven't posted in months and they're inactive. And for whatever reason, you might want to unfollow those as well. It doesn't mean you have to unfollow them if they haven't posted for a while, but you might want to unfollow them as well. If you find accounts like these, it might be time to unfollow them, like I said. But one thing you do need to consider is not to do lots of unfollowing. Like, don't do a ton of unfollowing all at once, because some accounts will flag that as spammy activity, and you absolutely don't want that. Yeah, just a bit of a pro tip: don't go on a mass unfollowing spree. Some platforms are known to temporarily block your account, and you don't need that kind of stress in your life. That is more stress than decluttering the feed. So don't go too aggressive with unfollowing. Just take it slow. But see how you get on, because yeah, it can be very therapeutic. Another tip that you might want to have a look at is Instagram now will flag accounts for your review. So if you go onto your profile and you tap on followers, you'll see two options, or you will hopefully see two options, because it can be different on people's accounts. But right at the top of your followers list, so not the people you're following, but the people who are following you, you will see one that says flag for your review, and you'll see one that says deactivated accounts. And they can be good ones to go through, because if the accounts have been deactivated, you can remove them off your profile. Or if they've been flagged for your review, it can highlight, not all of them will necessarily, they're for your review. So you go through it and it might be that for whatever reason you do still want them following you, but it's a good way to find those spammy bot accounts and deactivated accounts. Now, when you go through this, it will remove them from your followers, which can be soul destroying, because it does make your follower count go down. But remember, it's not all about your follower count. It's about having the right people following you. And it's good for your engagement if you don't have a ton of spammy or bot accounts or inactive accounts or deactivated accounts. So that's another thing that you could do if you've got 10 minutes, is just go to your followers list. Like I said, there should be an option that says flag for your review and deactivated accounts, and you can go through that. While you are cleaning up and decluttering, also make sure you're following the right people. So are you following people who engage with your content, comment on your posts, and genuinely support your business? Because these are your people. So make sure you are showing them some love in return as well. And it might be a time, one of your cleanup things might actually be to create a save collection of people that are right for you and that you want to engage with more as well. I've spoken about that in previous episodes, the episode that I bang on about all the time, which is what does social media engagement really mean and how to do it. So I will link to that in the show notes. And yeah, that's something else you can do when, I started off by talking about decluttering your feed, but actually it could just be cleaning up your feed, making sure you're not following the wrong people and you are following the right people and you know who they are, so you can reciprocate the love to them. Okay, so that was tip number 3. Like I said, declutter your feed / clean up your feed, but just curate your space, make it a place you want to be and that makes you feel good and that is nice and positive. Okay, so tip number 4, you could spend some time having a little brush up on your competitors. Now, I know we're not here to obsess over what others are doing, and I am big on that, but it can be super helpful to see what your competitors are up to sometimes. And I spoke about this in a recent episode, all about how to create 10 steps to creating a social media strategy for your business. So I will link to that in the show notes. And I won't go into a massive amount of detail here, but here's just a few quick things you can do on that isn't creating a whole social media strategy. So yeah, have a little look maybe about what they're up to if you're in the right headspace for it, because that can be super helpful. Have a look at what's working for them, what types of content they're posting that's getting a lot of engagement, and use it for inspiration. Where are they showing up? All that kind of stuff. You can just spend a little bit of time checking out what they're doing. And again, like, set a timer for it so that when that timer goes off, you stop it and you don't fall down a rabbit hole. And if at any point, I will caveat this all by saying, at any point it starts to make you feel negative, stop doing it. Don't do it unless you are in a good headspace to do it. It is also worth keeping an eye on how they're positioning themselves and which types of posts are getting traction, like I said, because you can gather inspiration from that, and see if they're doing things that you could tweak and apply to your own social media. But like I said, and I've said this in a few episodes now, this is about inspiration. It's not about copying. So yeah, that's a really important part. Don't just copy them. Take inspiration, but put your own unique spin on things, and stay true to your business, your brand voice, your values, and your personality. And also, if their engagement is looking great, if it looks like they're getting a lot of engagement on your posts, ask yourself why. Is there something they're doing to stand out? What could you implement to your own daily habits or weekly habits to bring your content up a game? Stay focused on making it your own, but learn from what works. And it might be that you notice that, for example, they're creating a certain type of post that seems to be getting quite a lot of traction, or it might be that they are putting out very similar posts to you, but they're also regularly showing up on their stories. So have a look at that kind of stuff and see what you can take inspiration from. So that was tip number 4. Right, number 5, final tip to help clean up your social media a little bit. Give your content a polish up. So that's a little bit of what we were just talking about. But now I want you to look at your own content. Do you find yourself posting the same things over and over again? Are you feeling stuck in a bit of a rut? If the answer is yes, it might be time to dust off that content calendar, if that's what you have, or your content plan, and breathe some new life into your ideas. So if, for example, you have a regular post, which is something I recommend doing, I have various regular posts which make it, they can be quite quick and easy to create each month. But actually, if you're creating regular posts, but every single month it gets tumbleweeds, then maybe consider doing something else, because it's all very well having content that you can just repurpose and get out there quickly. But if it's not working, you don't want to be posting it out there. So have a look and see if you are posting the same things over and over again. That doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong, but see if it's getting the result that you want. And if it's not, maybe have a think about mixing it up a bit and creating something new. You can start by getting back to basics. So if your content isn't working, go back to thinking about, and I do talk about this again in the strategy episode that I mentioned earlier. So go to the link in the show notes and check out that episode if you haven't listened to it already. But think about who your ideal customer is, or your ideal client is, and what do they really want to hear from you. Take some time to brain dump some fresh ideas. You can look at your past posts to see what's worked really well. So maybe past posts that weren't a regular post but were a one-off post, and if it's worked really well, think about how you can make it even better, or think about how you can reuse it. If you've seen content that's inspired you, save it, screenshot it, and use it as a jumping off point, but use it as inspiration. Don't copy. And get creative. Think about how you can engage your audience in new ways. Maybe it's through a Q&A. If you're really brave, you could do a live. If you do that, I would love to you to tell me, because I'd love to come along and support you and watch a live. If you've never done behind the scenes looks, you could maybe consider doing something like that, or sharing stories that resonates with your followers and your ideal customer and client. The more you pour your enthusiasm into your posts, the more your followers will connect with them. So your energy will shine through that. Don't be afraid to get creative and try some new things. And that probably all falls in line with the O of the BOSS framework, my framework for creating content. The O stands for optimize for engagement. And these kind of posts would be great for that. I've done a podcast episode on that, so I will also link to that in the show notes, and you can give that a listen if you want to know more detail about it. So there you have it. It was a pretty bite-sized episode, but hopefully packed full of tips that you can go off and implement. And remember, it's about spending 10 minutes here and there doing something and then stopping and coming back to it. It's not about doing it all at once. These are 5 simple tips to give your social media a much needed cleanup. And whether you take on just one tip or go all in, you will notice a difference in how your profiles look and feel. So definitely give it a go. Like I said, even if it's just whilst you're waiting for the kettle to boil. Like I said, freshening it up like this a little bit is a great way to keep it fresh, but also to keep your followers engaged and your business looking its best and making you feel the best you can about your profiles, which is going to inspire you to show up. Remember, and this is the point I'm going to end on, social media cleanups don't have to be overwhelming. The tips in this episode aren't intended to be overwhelming. They're intended to take in really little steps. So, you can make a note of all of them and you can add them to to-do list, but do them in real short bite-sized things. If you start to feel overwhelmed, stop and come back to it when you are not feeling like that. Just take it one step at a time and you will be amazed at the difference that it can make. Thank you so much for listening to Show Up and Be Heard, but please don't go without telling me your name. I genuinely love meeting new people and making new connections. So if you don't already, I'd love it if you'd come find me on Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook and drop me a message to say hello and let me know what you thought of the episode. The link to all my socials are in the show notes. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode or found it useful, then I'd really appreciate it if you could take just a few minutes to give it a review on whatever platform you are listening on, because everyone I get really does make me do a little squeal and a big happy dance. Finally, more than anything else, please always remember, realising that you're not actually meant to do this stuff alone is the first step to making it easier. So I'll see you next time.